of a sudden, because it was still a lot, I pick up, because it was only half of the little work. I don't have to do that very often. Then my neighbor has 2 garbage cans that weren't filled. So you just set them back up in front of his house, I guess, maybe somebody took looking for theirs and find them in front of his house.
Yep.
Just little sticks. Everything that was good.
Call this meeting to order. The board did not write the zoning ordinance, but does have the authority to grant relief from it from where practical difficulty or unnecessary hardship would result. The board will vote on each agenda item following a public hearing. Use variances request a minimum of 6 affirmative votes in order to grant the requested variance. Non-use variance requests required a minimum of 5 affirmative votes in order to grant the variances. If you would like to request that the board table adjourn your case due to the absence of a full board, you must inform the chairperson immediately after the public hearing. Petitioners shall do their best to limit their presentations to 10 minutes. Each participant in a public hearing shall do their best to limit comments to 3 minutes. As you may notice, we don't have a full board. We only have 7 people here, so please keep that in mind. So if you would like your case to be postponed or adjourned till next meeting, let us know after the public comment. First item on the agenda is approval of minutes for last meeting, February 9th, 2017.
Motion to approve.
I'll support.
Okay, all in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Minutes have been approved. Next, we have an old business, case number 17-02-07. Waive 66 of the minimum required 109 off-street parking spaces to prevent expansion of a commercial building for retail sales, office space, and/or carry-out restaurant at 221 North Main Street. This was also had a public hearing last month. Joseph.
This, as you stated, this item was postponed or adjourned from last month. About 3 weeks, 2.5, 3 weeks ago, we mailed the agenda to the petitioner to remind them of their placement on this agenda. We didn't receive any correspondence back, so this past Tuesday, 2 days ago, I reached out in an email, and I have not heard anything back, nor has anyone else in our office.
All right. Is the petitioner or anyone representing the petitioner here present? All right, seeing none. Is there any motion or desire?
Bring it back here.
We have been fielding inquiries from other parties about the property, so that leads me, one might speculate on what's happened, but I can't get any response from the petitioner.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion. Since they're not here, I assume they're not interested in pursuing this project. I make a motion to deny case 17-02-07.
I'll support.
Okay. Any comments, Ellen, since you made the motion?
I mean, I think it was a far-fetched thought that it was going to be approved. I think that somehow, obviously, the business deal fell apart or whatever the status, but the petitioner not being here tonight suggests to me that he's not interested in pursuing this, so we might as well take it off the table.
Any other comments?
Feel the same way?
Okay.
I just point out, it's good that the board wants to make a decision and have a clear motion, because if anyone else was interested in making an appeal, we wouldn't be able to process that because this would still be pending. So the fact that you're taking action is positive.
Okay. Seeing no other discussion on this matter, we'll hear a call to vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? All right. Motion passes to deny the variances. No other old business, so we'll move on to new business. Case number F-17-03-01. Public hearing on the appeal of Kenneth Goodwin, owner of the following variance for a fence ordinance. Variance A, waive 2 feet of the maximum permitted 4 feet fence height with a front yard setback along Detroit Avenue. to install a 6-foot-high site-obscuring wood fence within a front yard setback as defined in the zoning ordinance at 2500 North Main Street. Joseph.
This property is located at the corner of Main and Detroit. The property directly to the east at 109 Detroit obviously faces Detroit, has orientation toward Detroit. So this makes this a corner lot, and therefore it's subject to the setback standards for the dwelling to the east. And the petitioner is proposing to place a 6-foot-high site-obscuring wood fence along that south property line, which is within the front yard setback of the house to the east. And as we know, the ordinance only allows for a site-obscuring fence to be a maximum height of 4 feet in the front yard. So they're seeking the waiver of 2 feet.
Any questions for Mr. Murphy? No? Seeing none. Is the petitioner present? If so, please come forward, state your name and address for the record.
My name is Kenneth Donald Goodwin Jr., 2500 North Main Street, Royal Oak.
I'm Gina Goodwin.
Okay.
Live at the same address.
We're seeking this fence. This is for my daughter. It's a emotional support dog, and huskies are known for jumping fences, and he's jumped the fence several
He's
times.
been going over the fence.
We keep him on a cable, and we have some pictures here, and the two of them get tangled up.
My daughter was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and she has anxiety. And so her doctor, we have a letter from her doctor, and we have his registration form. Recommend we should get her an emotional support dog. And we just wanted to rescue a dog, and we rescued one, and that didn't work out too good. He ended up biting her, and we ended up having to put him down, unfortunately. And then we did some research, and we found out about huskies and that they're very loving and they're very good with people. And so we went ahead and we got him, and he's been fantastic for her. I mean, her medications have been decreased. Her meds. She's doing so well with him. And then he started jumping the fence. We thought, well, we've put him on. He's always been on a leash, and he goes over the fence with the leash on. We used to be able to go in the yard with him off the leash, but now he's jumping over even when we're out there with him. We got another one thinking, maybe he would stay. Now they're both jumping the fences, and we're just afraid they get tangled up on the leashes. They're around their necks, they're around their bodies, and we're just afraid they're gonna go over the fence or even jump the fence with a leash on, or somehow get out and not be on a leash and get hit. We're on the main street there, so. And we're just hoping, it's on Detroit Avenue, so it's not any obstruction. Hoping everything.
There are two other properties in Royal Oak that are exactly the same as ours. One of them is on Rochester. It's 2400 Rochester Avenue. The side street is Parkdale Avenue. It is the exact same scenario as our property. Their front yard is on Rochester. Their driveway is on Parkdale Avenue. They have a 6-foot privacy fence, and that fence has only been up, I would say, about 5 years. When the owners did that, they did the whole house. They did the roof, they vinyl sided, they did the windows, and they did the fence last. So I can't believe that, as good as Royal Oak is as far as getting around and inspecting, that fence was put up without a permit. And there is one other property on 12 Mile. It's 924 12 Mile, and it's on the corner of Altadena. And that property is the same thing. Their front yard faces 12 Mile, which is a main street. Their driveway is on Altadena, and the builder that's going to do the fence for us has proposed angling the fence in. So the person that lives at, I believe it's 901 Detroit Avenue, even if they back down the driveway, they would not back down the driveway. It wouldn't be obstruction. They would pull down farther, and there would be no obstruction. This is, not in the obstruction. They would pull down farther, and there would be no obstruction. This is, not in the obstruction. They would pull down farther, and there would be no obstruction. This is, not in the obstruction. They would pull down farther, and there would be no obstruction. This is, not in the obstruction. They would pull down farther, and there would be no obstruction. This is, not in the obstruction. They would pull down farther, and there would be no obstruction. This is, not in the obstruction. They would pull down farther, and there would be no obstruction. This is, not in the obstruction. They would pull down farther, and there would be no obstruction. This is, not in the obstruction. They would pull down farther, and there would be no obstruction. This is, not in the obstruction. They would pull down farther, and there would be no obstruction. This is, not in the obstruction. They would pull down farther, and there would be no obstruction. This is, not in the obstruction. They would pull down farther, and there would be no obstruction for the well-being of my daughter. The safety of our dog.
I have a question. Now, you're, the drawing there, you're having it go beyond the garage?
Well, we want it
Or
to
are you
go.
talking about, because I see that there's a cyclone fence there already.
We've lived at this property for 24 years, and we put that fence up. We want to put it from, the Florida room, which would be back here, all the way down and around. This is our driveway, this is the garage.
Or any way that
Because it does seem to me that the property, your property to the east is, I mean, I can see where you could put a fence in without having to fence in that property to the east, which is what is really, close to the neighbor's front yard there. And also, my other question might be that, have you ever considered the underground fence? I can't remember what those things are called.
The electric fence.
Electric fence.
Well, we
Visible
have, but we've talked to several, my sister has one, and it didn't work with the dog at all. He went right through. And we went to a friend's home, and they had one, and it didn't work out. And they're not real, they don't like the idea of, because I had said a shock collar, and they don't want to do that. My husband and my daughter, they think that's very cruel.
So that was my question was about the extended part that you want to fence
The
in.
other side of the
On the
garage.
other side of the garage, because it seems like you could carry that angle line and just go to the one side of the garage, and that might be a compromise.
Yeah, that would be fine. That would be fine. We just need to be able to let them run. You know, they're big dogs. We walk them every day, sometimes twice a day. You can't let them off their leashes. All the dog parks around are 4-foot fences. They'll go over, but they need to, even the little area that we have, they need to be able to run somewhat, you know. We walk with them. My husband used to ride the bike with each of them separately until he went over the handlebars and broke his shoulder, so we can't let them run that way.
Their natural instinct,
run.
is to run.
they're
If
just
they see
wonderful
a squirrel
people.
or a bird, it's just, and if you know anything about Huskies, their nickname is Houdini because they will either
They jump.
dig and go underneath the fence, or they go over the fence.
We've not had a
And
problem with the digging. They're just
but-
going over.
That's just their,
Well, I'm
We
very
had
familiar
neighbors-
with large breed dogs, as we had 2 German Shorthairs who will do the exact same thing. So when my children started hopping over the fence, I said, don't you ever do that, because our fence was 4 feet high.
Right, and they-
Because as soon as the dog sees you do it, they'll do it.
well, and some dogs don't jump, they will climb. They put their feet,
Oh, yeah, we had a climber too.
Yeah, well, we have a jumper and a climber. And, you know, when we put the fence in, we didn't know about, but we did not want, we live across from the park, and it's beautiful. We didn't want any kind of a privacy fence. That's when the children, 22 years ago, they were younger, we just wanted a fence to keep the kids in. We never had a problem with them going over the fence. So we don't want it if we didn't have to have it. It's beautiful, but unfortunately, he does go over the fence, and they both.
No either, but it looks like it's, yeah.
So Leslie already asked my question
Okay.
about the invisible fence.
Apparently.
Have you considered a 6-foot cyclone fence?
Realize this.
Cyclone
They've
fence.
got that for the driveway.
is that just the regular galvanized?
Like you have now, only higher.
That
Yeah,
would be
sure.
fine. We
you
don't
know,
care.
That's fine too.
That's fine,
but
too.
We just
We
figured.
had said
so
that,
small.
they had told us.
The problem I have with this, I have a couple of problems,
This
for one
height
thing.
for the
We give hardships and we love animals, but animals aren't a hardship. I mean,
No, but my
there's
daughter
nothing
was.
within our rulings to be able to, I mean, what we're going to grant tonight or not grant tonight goes with the house. So you leave, the next people get this fence we gave them. And so we really have to go beyond your particular, and I certainly sympathize with you, and I'm going to do my best to try to help within the realm of what we can do. My problem with this, and I cut down the street a lot because I take it to Vincetta, a 6-foot fence near Main is going to cut off vision heading north. I turn south, so it's probably not going to be that big a deal to me.
Well, we don't want the fence to go up that far.
Well,
I mean, from where the fence would end and where the stop sign is, there's quite a few feet, 10, 15.
you put a wood fence, you need a lot of footage. I think I would have to not
Big
agree to a
boulevard.
wood fence here. I think Detroit, I mean, and going the other way, you can't see anything, and I don't think the street needs any more visual impacts than it has. But I think if the problem is a dog jumping over the fence, then a cyclone fence, I could probably get behind.
That would be fine. We would go, as long as we have we just need a 6-foot fence. We don't really care if it's privacy or not. If we can,
And I'm sure that, all of us, when we looked at this, sort of spitballed in our heads what would work, what wouldn't work, that's obviously, that's just a part of the process. And I noticed that you have a sidewalk that I'm assuming feeds a side door,
Yep.
Yep.
and you open the side door to let the dogs out, I'm assuming.
That or the back door.
Oh, I didn't realize you had the back door. So when I looked at this, I thought to myself, if the 6-foot fence made a turn and ran along that sidewalk that feeds your side door so that the dogs have complete access to it, the fence would end so far back from Main Street that the visibility triangle issue that Alan brought up disappears.
So I'm not, put it right outside of the door.
Put it just to the front of the side door, so that as you open the door, the dog is totally fenced, but you're staying far enough away from the vision.
That would be fine with me too.
Because Alan's point about taking it to the sidewalk and you never want to create a situation where the visibility triangle is impaired, because obviously that leads to accidents and so forth. But taking it back to the sidewalk and having it make a right turn past the sidewalk going toward the home so that you have complete access to the door was was sort of what I envisioned in my head as a possible
Well,
solution.
Where the fence is now, to where the house ends, we have the front yard, and then there's also a huge boulevard where the stop sign is but that's fine too, right outside the door. I didn't really think, I pulled down, my fence is nowhere in sight where, and I'm trying to pull out turn a right onto Main Street there. I thought it was more of an obstruction view from the gentleman behind us.
And those of us sitting at this table know that there have been some updates to the fencing ordinance, and some people who had fences were found to be non-compliant, and there was a source of some tension in the city, that's for sure. So that's one of the reasons Alan brought up some of the points that he did, because this isn't the first time that we've had to deal with this sort of thing.
Yeah, and we're really trying to obscure it versus obscure it more. So, I think we kind of side on the side of clearing the intersections. I still think, though, a cyclone fence, which would give you still the beauty of the park across the street.
Well, and
solves
also
problem.
the dogs
Probably
love the
saves you some money.
park, the dogs love the park. We didn't know, either way.
Any other questions? All right, thank you very much.
Thank you.
We'll open up the public commentary portion of this. Is there anyone here to speak on behalf of this item? All right, seeing none, we'll close the public commentary portion and bring it back here to the board. Comments and/or motions?
Do they want to go ahead with it?
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
With the adjustment?
they just need a majority.
Simple majority?
Yeah, simple
Okay,
majority.
all right.
Any comments?
I'll make a motion just so we can get the ball rolling. Unlike Mr. Kroll, I think that a 6-foot cyclone fence would be far more unattractive than a very attractive 6-foot wooden fence that was properly maintained. My motion would be to allow the fence to be built, but have it take a turn at whatever degree angle that is, so it runs parallel to the driveway, so it frees up the front yard of the neighbor immediately to their east without impinging on their property too much. Then running along Detroit Avenue up to the point where the sidewalk leading into the side door is, at which point it makes a turn going into the home.
Is there support?
I'll support that. I think that's a fair compromise, but I also agree too that the wood fence is more attractive than the chain link or cyclone fence.
All right.
So
Just trying to save them some money.
To make it clear in my mind, so you're putting the 6-foot fence maybe we can get that one Joseph, can you get that?
So she,
Maybe they're drawing, I guess is.
Well, no, if you follow the cursor, that's exactly where I'm
Yeah.
talking, where it makes a
Yeah.
turn, and then running along the driveway, exactly.
Go along the driveway over there
On
on
the
that
other
side,
side.
because I would,
Okay.
because I was thinking on the inside, because
So-
to me, it doesn't seem,
Necessary, yeah.
yeah, necessary to even have it that far over.
Remember, you gotta have the 10-foot triangles on
Right.
either side of that driveway.
so
They are proposing that.
I
they'll have
know,
to modify a drawing to show
yeah.
the 6-foot fence comes out from essentially the side entrance to the property line, eastward, on the 10-foot angle, and then it can go back this way, and then from this point, it can go back if they so choose to place a fence on the east side of the driveway, or it can be here.
But it would have to be,
Well, they still
what
would have to
happens
have
that
the
triangle?
10-foot triangle
Correct.
on the other
They're
side.
not asking
so
for a waiver from that, so that has
That
has
gets to be
in place.
sort of strange.
How
I
would you
mean, I
get?
wouldn't be opposed to what Leslie's saying. I mean, in some ways, that makes a lot of sense as well. I just made the motion just so we can sort of talk it out and see what we come up with.
See, if you notice on their sketch, east of the driveway, there's only 10 foot a yard, so you've got a 10-foot triangle going to a sharp point on the sidewalk on, which is sort of crazy. You almost might want to have the straight fence be 10 foot back there, which also doesn't impinge on the neighbors who look out of their house now and see a 6-foot fence. We run into that too when we look at a lot of these things, just like when a porch sticks out too far, that it's into that sight line. And unfortunately, their house faces Main Street, but their neighbor's house faces Detroit. So now they'd have this big 6-foot fence that runs along. But if you did that triangle, that point would actually be the far corner. I mean, there's only 10 foot there. So I think you almost need a better to scale drawing so you can truly see what's going on here.
That's the difficulty I'm having. I can't figure out where it's going.
Because the lot lines are skewed here too, and that shows it straight.
Well, my thought is that they could always put a 4-foot fence on the east
The
side.
dog can jump that.
I know, but then they can bring the 6-foot fence along the side, the north side, or the west side of the garage, and put in that, where that's that 5-foot or 3-foot thing, they can put a doorway there, or they can put a 6-foot
So more of
section
a
there.
dog run is what you're suggesting. Is that?
Well, they can have most of the backyard
Yeah.
is for the dog, and then they can have, if they want a fence, I mean, they may not even want to fence that other part in. I'm just saying that they have that ability to, if they just want a fence for whatever reason. They can make that the 4-foot. Anything east of the garage, they could do 4 feet, in other words.
They would, if we agreed to this, they still would have to come into you with a real drawing that shows exactly where the fence goes so that it can be seen that it doesn't violate any of the triangles, et cetera.
They'd have to provide a modified drawing to the building division, and that would be reviewed before the permit would be issued.
Okay, so even if there's something still a little glitch there, you would see it, it wouldn't necessarily just be installed.
Correct. They
Good.
still need to be
Okay.
issued the actual permit.
Okay, so if we decided, for instance, that they could have a 6-foot fence no further forward than that sidewalk from their side door, then all of the other things that we worry about would be taken care of by your department when they come in with their plan.
For compliance with things like the 10-foot visibility triangle, all those
Yeah.
items, yes.
Or any other thing that all of a sudden just looked really strange. You know, you just go.
Or non-compliant, yes.
Okay, that
Yeah.
in a way makes it easier, because now it's a discussion as to, would we allow the 6-foot fence rather than all the tiny items that
And now we're just
occur?
letting staff do their jobs. So, I mean, that makes
Yeah.
perfect sense.
Yeah,
I guess, but are you still allowing a 6-foot fence on the far east side of the property, which is actually in the front part of the neighbor's front yard?
Yes.
That's the part I'm not crazy about. I'd rather see that 6-foot fence be on the side of the garage closest to the house, right there along that.
But
So
is that even a issue, though? Because that's not considered a front yard, is it?
Yes, actually,
The
both
east
sides
side
of a,
is?
both sides of a corner house are the
I
front
know
yard.
both sides, but I thought we were talking about the furthest east point.
Yes, but it really infringes on their neighbor.
It does, but I don't,
That'd be the rear
but they're
yard.
allowed to have a 6-foot fence there.
Not in your front yard. No. And that's the front yard. You
This?
can't have any 6-foot fence in your front yard.
This person's, it's,
This
Yeah,
person.
It's that person's, but,
You can't have a 6-foot fence.
so we're saying on 3 sides of this house, they can't have a 6-foot fence.
This plane, if you look at the monitor over there, this plane, and this plane, they're proposing 6-foot fence in all these locations.
Right,
And that's within
The front yard,
that
yeah.
front yard.
okay.
The whole house is a front yard. It's the problem. When do you ever put a garage in the front yard?
Have no backyard.
All right. Any other thoughts on this? Well, my thought is I've actually had, and I'm a little bit torn like everyone else. I have an aunt who had huskies, and they had the same problem of them always running, always, in fact, I want to say its nickname was Houdini-ya, because she was a girl, because she was always getting out and running away. And even the invisible fence didn't help either. She just ran through it and just kept on going. So I understand we have to be looking out for the future, and that's why it's definitely a 6-foot-high cyclone. I'd have no qualm whatsoever. Unfortunately, because the variance says no fence shall be erected, constructed, or reconstructed the height of more than 4 feet. It doesn't say site obscuring or not site obscuring. That means no matter what type of fence, we've got to grant it. But I think where we're going at with the direction of nothing farther west than that, or the fence can be 6 foot or high east of that sidewalk, I'm on board for that because it would help alleviate everything. I know that far east side is a little bit wonky, but
Well, if you made it east of the driveway and east of the sidewalk,
west of the driveway, east of the sidewalk.
sorry, west of the driveway,
And I think that's what you proposed
no,
originally.
west of the sidewalk too. If you make it east of the sidewalk, you let the dog out into the front yard. It's got to be west of the
Yeah.
sidewalk.
West of the sidewalk.
Right.
West of the sidewalk,
Right.
west of the driveway. If the 6-foot fence was there, it doesn't affect the neighbor on
Right.
Detroit. We have a high fence along the street, which is what the whole issue is here. But it still gives them, and they still got to have the 10-foot triangle. It's not necessarily a very big backyard, but it's still a fenced-in area with a site-obscuring fence.
Right. Or if it's cyclone, it's not really site obscuring, but
Yeah,
it still meets.
right now they're
granting the
talking about a
variance.
wooden fence,
Yep.
so we have to talk as if it's a site-obscuring fence. It's stated, a 6-foot wooden fence in the variant, or the request.
Right.
Mr. Chair, if I may, I will like to modify my motion to include the changes mentioned by Mr. Muller.
I'll support that too.
Okay, I believe we have to,
From here.
okay. Those are noted, Joseph has them noted. Any other discussion points before we move to a vote?
I'll just mention that I always have a problem with 6-foot fences. But the fact that there's a park across the street makes a little difference to me. It's not residents having to look at the fence. So that made me think that I'd be open to discussion. I'm still torn about having a 6-foot fence there, but I think we're limiting it enough, and they have enough justification showing practical difficulties for their unique position that I guess I would support it at this point with those variations that we put on it.
Any other comments? See none? We'll move to vote. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Okay, variance is granted per the limitations we've placed upon it. Moving on to the next case, case number 170308, public hearing on the appeal of Holland Hunter Realtors petitioner and Anna Spencer, owner for the following variances at 41110 Edgeland Avenue. Variance A, waive 0.2 feet of the minimum required 5-yard north yard setback for parcel A. B, waive 0.02 feet for the minimum required combined side yard setback for 15 feet of parcel A to permit a land division and create a buildable lot. Mr. Murphy.
This property is located on the east side of Edgeland. It's comprised of 2 platted lots, and it contains a single-family dwelling and a detached garage that the petitioners propose to keep. So they want to divide the property into 2 and revert back to the original plat. Since they want to retain the structures, they need to meet the minimum, the house needs to meet its minimum side yard setback, which is 5 feet. The proposed lot line creates a new side yard setback for the house of only 4.8 feet. Well, it's very close to 5, it's not 5. So the petitioner is seeking that slight variance of 0.2 feet from the minimum 5-foot requirement. Together, the north and south setback needs to be no less than 15 feet. The setback on the opposite side is exactly 10 feet, so when we add 4.8 and 10, it's just shy, the same number shy of meeting the 15-foot combined side yard setback. So the petitioner has provided a survey for you, and we have some photographs as well of the dwelling.
Any questions for Mr. Murphy?
Yes, Mr. Murphy, are these 2 lots, these individual lots, are they at least comparable in size or greater than all the surrounding lots, within a few parcels?
They didn't need to meet that provision because they exceed the minimum standards to begin with. It's only once a proposal doesn't meet the minimum 50 foot for an interior lot, 50 feet wide, 100 feet deep, and a minimum of 6,000. The proposed lot that's being created far exceeds those 3 standards,
Okay.
so there's no need to do the comparison.
And they're in front of us for 8 inches, am I reading that right?
2.2.
0.2, so it's
2 feet.
Isn't that 4 inches apiece?
3 inches.
Slight amount.
Yeah,
2.7.
that's a lot.
The surveyor did go out to the site, I believe, on at least 2 occasions to double check the measurement.
Any other questions for Mr. Murphy?
Should check it after the wind's blowing.
I just had one.
Sure.
Sorry. Okay, I had jumped one. If, because it's always nice to have that 5 feet for safety reasons, there's no way if we did this, putting stipulation on that extra 0.2 feet, say, for example, they do the outside of the house on that line about 5 feet off, we can't say it has to be a minimum 5.2 feet off. So you have
Placing the burden on the
the future.
parcel B?
Yes,
No, that wouldn't be
I didn't think so.
appropriate.
I just wanted to make sure.
As our resident architects would know, the closer 2 structures come to each other in new construction, the higher the fire rated wall. So anything new built on B would be able to be at the minimum of 5, but based on the building code, the closer they get, whether it crosses a property boundary or not, it needs to just be a higher fire rated wall.
I just want to make sure. Okay. Any other questions? Seeing none, is the petitioner here? And if so, please come forward and state your name and address for the record.
I am Kathleen Jardine. I am representing the seller of 4110 Edgeland. Do you have any questions?
Well, did you have anything to state further than what's already been stated? Mr. Jarrett?
No, but I want you to know she is trying to sell this property so that she can stay in her home as an elderly woman to retrofit, get the money to retrofit her home. So that's the purpose for the sale. And it, as you know, it was at the time, it was 2 parcels at one time. So And the house was built the way it is, and it was still 2 parcels, so it's a very small variance. But thank you for your time.
Any questions for the petitioner? All right. Thank you. If you decide you want us to delay this till next meeting because we don't have a full board, let us know at the end of public comment. Anyone here to speak at public comment? All right, seeing none, we'll close public comment. Yes, Mr. Crowley.
I'd like to make a motion to approve case number 170308, both A and B.
I'll support that.
Okay.
This is really quite a lot they're asking for, I think, in 8 inches. This is no brain.
2.4 inches.
It's 2.4 inches.
2.4 inches.
Is that it? That's even worse.
0.2 times 12 is 2.4.
Really? I'm going to stay with my motion to approve it.
I'm
then.
appalled, yeah.
I might have to reconsider my support.
All right. That's, any other discussion on this? All right, seeing none, we'll move to a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Seeing none, the motion carries. The variances have been granted.
Mr. Chair, I'll have to recuse myself from this item right here. I have direct involvement, my company has direct involvement with this project.
For case number 17-03-09, public hearing and appeal of Krieger Klatt Architects and T&J Investments for 303 East Kenilworth Avenue. Involves variance A, a use variance, variance B, 14 of the minimum required 16 off-street parking spaces, variance C, waive 22,536 square feet of the minimum required 27,000 square feet lot area, D, waives 5.6 of the minimum required 25 feet south front yard setback to the structure, F, waive 21 feet from the minimum required 25 feet east side yard setback to the structure. G, waive 21 feet from the minimum required 25 feet west side yard setback to the structure. G, waive 25 feet from the minimum required 25 feet west yard setback measured to the porch and steps. H, waive 100 square feet of the minimum required 600 square feet of the floor area related to 4 two-bedrooms dwelling units. I, waive 92 square feet of the minimum required 450 square feet of floor area related to 4 one-bedrooms dwelling units. This is demolish a non-conforming 6-unit multifamily structure and permit construction of a non-conforming 2-story 8-unit multifamily structure in a one-family residential zoning district. Mr. Murphy.
Property is located at the corner of Kenilworth and Delaware, and as pointed out, it is zone 1-family residential. Contains a non-conforming 6-unit multiple family development, and multiple family developments are neither permitted nor special land use in this particular zoning district. The property currently maintains a rental license for 6 units, so it's able to continue legally as a non-conforming use. But once it's demolished, anything that's placed on the site needs to conform to the current standards in the 1-family residential zoning district. Petitioner is proposing, as noted, a 2-story 8-unit multifamily structure. That type of use is not permitted, so they're seeking a use variance to allow a multiple family structure in the 1-family residential zoning district. The proposed site contains a driveway off of Delaware Avenue with a total of 2 parking spaces. At 8 units, we require 2 off-street parking spaces per unit. Therefore, they'd be required to provide 16, and they're only providing the opportunity for 2. So they're seeking a parking variance of that difference. We apply the standards, the bulk and area standards for a multifamily project to this proposal. And the lot itself is rather small. It's 4,464 square feet. So it's even small by the standards for a 1-family residential district. As the board knows, we do have some standards for the lot size for the number of units that's proposed. For the number of units that they're seeking they would be required to have a minimum lot size of 27,000 square feet. And they certainly fall short of that, so they're seeking a waiver from that standard. Ordinance does require 25-foot setback on each side. I won't go through all of them, other than to say they are unable to meet all of those setback standards for 25 feet, so they're seeking the individuals east, west, south, and as well. Lastly, the ordinance requires we actually have a minimum size for apartment units with a number of bedrooms. So one bedroom requires a minimum square footage versus a two-bedroom. The units that they're proposing don't meet those standards, so they're seeking a waiver from the minimum square footage requirements for their proposed 4 of the 2 bedrooms that they're proposing and 4 of the 1-bedroom apartment units that they're proposing. You'll see in your report all the drawings from the petitioner and some site photographs to give you a perspective of currently what's there. And the petitioner has provided a written statement as well.
Any questions for Mr. Murphy?
I have one. How many affirmative votes do we need for a use variance?
Correct, we do need 5. The petitioner does need, 6. And for the non-use variances, it needs to be 5 affirmative votes.
In other words, for the use variance, it would need to be unanimous.
Correct.
Any other questions for Mr. Murphy? Since there's no other questions, is the petitioner here present? And if so, please come forward and state your name and record for the...
Commissioners, Tom Violante, 2758 Amberley Lane, Troy, Michigan.
Jason Krieger with Krieger-Clad Architects, 1412 East 11 Mile, Royal Oak.
I purchased this property in, I think, approximately 2000. It had 7 units at the time. So now, 2017, this property's at a crossroads, brought me here. Property needs a roof. I started working with Jason Krieger-Clad and trying to put the roof on and do some modifications to improvements in some of the property. And we looked at the cost of that, and during one of the discussions, Jason said, you know, you're at a point now where if you want to present it to the city on tearing it down and building a new structure, that might be something that is worth considering. So here's the crossroads brought me here. In order to make it viable, the density is what it is. It started off at 7. I modified it to 6 units and then combined 2 units, 10 years ago. But Jason can tell you more about the project itself. He's probably better at that. But then I want to go back and tell you more about, I'm vested in the properties, which is why I'm interested in going to this route instead of making basically Band-Aid approaches to the current building and making a vast different improvement and the other improvements I would make on the street to address some of the parking issues. But you can go ahead and speak on the project itself.
So, as Tom mentioned, we've been working on this for a little while. And, it's a difficult site in that it's only 31 feet wide. It's on a corner. There's commercial to the west. There's mixed use to the north. This site's almost a buffer site to the residential, which is to the east. And what I mean by that is it bounds a dirt road. It's heavily traveled. There's no parking on site currently. And as you mentioned, there's 6 units currently on site. When we started to look at improving the property, it's an old, dated property, all right? And what happens with that is you start to touch things, you have to bring them up to code, and it's just the scope creep is ridiculous. And we got to the point where, if you modify it to a point where you start to move plumbing fixtures or take a wall down, it goes into the building department. At that point, everything has to get brought up to code. And the building's so old, things don't meet egress. It just gets to the point where it's almost a brand new building. And we looked at renovating it. We thought that it'd be easier to renovate it to the point to bring it up to code. At that point, it was literally getting ripped down. I mean, nothing was left. We needed to fire rate walls between units. We needed to fire rate the wall on the east. And that's where we said, well, you know what? If you're going to do that, make a new building, and we can make it nice. We can make it look like a townhouse right there in the corner. That's, again, what brought us here. So It's always been mixed use, at least for as long as we know. Maybe it started out as a single family way back in the day, but it was converted as long as Tom's had it. It's been, or not mixed use, sorry, multifamily. And the proposal is to keep it multifamily and improve it. We did meet with Mr. Twing and looked for some advice, and he said, you know, go to the zoning board if you want to do this versus getting a PUD or any other options. So that's what brought us here. So I'm pointing out a couple things with the plans. We are proposing to, along the south, that line right there where the building is where the current building exists. So we held that existing line. On the west, the same thing, even though we're requesting a variance, that's where the existing building exists and the stairs. So we're proposing to keep that. The wall on the east is held. We are proposing to go to the allowable rear yard setback to the north. So as far as the building goes, we're really seeking dimensional variances along the west and along the south. When we look at the bulk and height of the building, we do fall within the allowable height. What I want to point out is that this just illustrates what exists and what we're proposing. So you can see that I think the building's about 6 inches taller than what exists currently. That gives us nice 9-foot ceilings. It'll be easier for Tom to rent out if this moves forward. On the side, you can see that it is longer, but it still matches the height of what exists. So this is our proposal. Obviously, we're available for questions, and we feel that we're bringing the best thing forward that we can by improving the neighborhood there and doing right by the owner as well.
A couple other things I want to point out. I'm vested in this whole street, in this whole neighborhood with Holiday Market. One of the things that I would commit to going this route is I would pave Delaware from Kenilworth to Parent. I've already made the commitment to pave from Parent to Harrison, and on top of that, as part of the this whole neighborhood, I've deeded property from just north of Parent, so that road could go straight through. Delaware could go straight through. So this whole neighborhood, it would be a complete improvement, and we would have a chance to make the street parking to work. And also, Delaware is not supposed to be a main street. That is, by design, wants to not have truck traffic and a lot of traffic through it. That was one of the concerns when we went ahead with the parking lot project a year ago.
Right, so currently the tenants park on
They park on the street, yeah.
We're actually providing 2 on site. So we're trying to keep as many existing conditions as possible as far as what's there, but just improve with any structure.
Questions for the petitioner?
Where are the 2 on-site spaces?
They are behind the building to the north.
To the north? And since you're tearing down the building, did you consider doing a single-family structure?
I would be back here. If you follow, well, go ahead.
Right, well, yeah, I mean, that's actually a good point. It's a very narrow lot. Chances are, even for a brand-new single-family structure, we'd be seeking a variance of some sort in order to make it marketable. And if we were to renovate the building, like I was talking about earlier, it would be back here because the renovations would take us to the point where it would likely bring us back here.
Any other questions?
What? I assume the building's filled with tenants?
Yes.
Has been most of the time?
I have a question, and I can understand why you went up to 8 on this one. Why not stay at the current amount of 6, so therefore you're not increasing the burden regarding parking?
I did think of that, and I'm torn because to put all this money in, I'm trying to make it financially viable too. So that was what I was weighing. This I didn't want to go this route anyhow, But this would work, and I would do this. But if we lose the density, then the money, it doesn't financially viably make sense.
So in other words, unless we allow the 8 units or 7 units, or it's 8 or nothing, basically, you're saying?
That's the math I have right now.
Jason, can you go back over the building you're proposing versus the existing
Yeah, sure.
building? And are you asking any additional variance for, I know you're adding on both ends, is that causing additional variance?
No, we're within the height.
Yeah.
Variances that we're seeking on the west is that condition exists. The building's already there.
So you're not doing anything more to the building lot line than is
That's correct.
from a variance point of view?
On the north, we're within the allowable buildable area. South, we are seeking variance, but the building exists there today.
So you're not really making it any more non-conforming?
No, just with the density, that would be it.
And
Adding parking spaces.
Parking.
Right, yep.
Any other questions for the petitioner?
How many units are in there right now?
There's 6 right now. It was 7 when I purchased it, and then I condensed one of the units to 2,
Okay,
or 2 of the units to 1.
so
6
at
units?
this point,
6 is your
12
answer.
cars are parking on the street someplace in theory. And you're asking for 16, so 12 to 16. I'm just trying to figure where the growth might be there in parking.
Now it would be 2 parking spots,
Yeah.
so.
Oh,
but
and you
there's
still have 2 parking spots. Yeah, okay, but
So
still,
I get your point, but yeah.
I think I'm close enough.
Yes,
And,
I agree with your assessment.
It's not like you,
Do you have a site plan of the parking, the way, because I'm committing to the street, to build the street. We can address that scenario better than with curb cuts or whatever.
right, to actually have spots. But, you know,
Good.
typically, these are small enough units, they're gonna be studios, so maybe 1 bed, like tiny 1-bedrooms, which are very popular right now, and you will likely have single people. That's really, in fact, right now, I think, for the most part.
As
It's
one
probably,
double,
yeah.
I missed when you were, I might have missed it. So currently you have 4 2-bedrooms and 2 1-bedrooms? Or how is, what is
You could
in there right now?
Make me mad.
Yeah,
I have, I believe they're all 1-bedroom right now. They're all 1-bedroom right now.
Okay, so in 1-bedroom, I'm seeing 1 car apiece for usually someone, unless they've got a significant other.
But what's unique on this property is Holiday Market is that whole entire block. There's not a homes with driveways and cutways all along, the west side of Delaware.
And all the front access is on that Delaware too, correct?
yeah, correct.
And there's no driveway now on half the block of Delaware because the apartment's there. So it's no driveways, no cutways, no.
Did you say you owned all the way to Parent?
I don't own all the way to, I am going to pave. There's another property owner who happens to be here who owns the other half of the block, that parcel to the north. This property is approximately half the block.
Joseph, do you know if that property to the north has enough parking currently?
Oh, yeah. I haven't researched it
Okay.
to know that.
looks like they've got a parking lot.
You have enough parking, don't you? He's got 2 parking lots.
Have you laid out the parking on what it would be if it was parallel along the street after you paved it, to see how many spots you would get? Okay.
But it's long enough, I mean, just by looking at it, obviously, we don't have a drawing, but by looking at it, you can get 8 cars, 8 to 10 cars. We could probably get to 16 that we require.
But you know, and
'Cause you
that's
have both
just-
sides.
You got both sides, all the way
Yeah,
down to,
exactly.
all the way down to
Right.
Parent, to Harrison.
Right. The thing too out of residential use is that you don't get a more low-impact use in residential. It'd be different if we were seeking a parking variance for a restaurant or something like that. This is, how deep's that lot?
Didn't your other drawing have parking spaces marked
I
out?
thought I saw one too.
Yeah. No, the
No,
one with the finished building that you took down.
Oh, yeah, that was a rendering that was just showing potentially what it could be.
So that's not what you're proposing to construct?
Oh, yeah.
Or the road?
It would be similar to that,
Oh.
yeah, it would be, but this is really just, us showing what could be 144.
Yeah, because we're all sort of concerned seeing 12 bedrooms, knowing that concern from the neighborhood about lack of parking and people parking more on.
Neighbor directly to the east.
If I went to
Looking
1 bedrooms, I would consider that. I think there's I would concede that, to go with that plan, and that would help the densities and everything else with one of the variances. But I would go with all 1 bedrooms. So I would modify my proposal,
So it'd still be 8 units, but
8
all
units.
1 bedrooms.
All 1 bedrooms.
Maybe six.
I will modify my proposal.
Let's see, because that would lower the amount of parking needed, correct, Joseph? Yes, we will. We'll do that, yeah. Any other comments or questions? No? Okay. Thank you very,
Actually,
oh,
Tom, so if you did 8 one-bedroom units, would you just make them all 450 square feet, or what?
Yeah, I would make them all equal. So that would help that one variance. I'm not an architect, is that possible?
It's possible, yes.
Okay, so that's what I would
All
do.
right. So whatever the square footage is, you
Yeah.
throw it in the hopper, whatever the number is, and
Divided by 4, and that's,
divide by 8, and,
or divided by 8, yeah.
gotcha, okay.
okay. All right, any other questions? All right, just to remind you, because it's a use variance, you would need it to be unanimous unless you wanted to adjourn to next month, and you can decide that after public comment if you decide.
Yeah, thank you.
We'll open up public comment now. Anyone here to speak on behalf of this case, please come forward and state your name and address for the record. Come forward.
My name is Wendy Thompson. I live at 323 East Kenilworth, just down the road. I have an issue with all these variances. There's a ton of variances. Kenilworth, East Kenilworth is a dead-end street, okay? So you want to have him park his cars? We already have his employees on our street. Now the apartments you're going to put more cars in our neighborhood? I don't agree with that at all. Another issue, if this goes through, we need to keep Kenilworth open. That's our only way in and out of our neighborhood. That we can't get out the other end, it's condos. So this has to be carefully looked at. That's, like I said, this is our only entrance. And as far as paving, I think he was supposed to pave the street when he put in the parking lot on Parent and Delaware. I think he was given that with his last project. I think that was included in some of the variances. I can be wrong, but I believe that was in the requirements last time he was given variances, to pave the road that is still not done. So I'm not for sure he should be granted any more variances until he completes the first ones. Just a comment. Thank you.
Any other one here to speak regarding this issue?
Hello, my name is Ifat Ahmed. I am the next resident to the apartment building. I want to know which side it will be face the building, and it will not be any disturbance to my building or my home.
Which side is the building going to be placed?
Yes. Are they going to take their more space for the building, or it will be the same space they will use?
Well, according to their plan, it looks like they're going to be leaving where the front portion of that house is and the side portion, and just going back farther towards parent, but no closer than to your house.
Okay, so they are going to use the open space for the building.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't know if you could see it, ma'am. If you want to take a look, there's you probably couldn't see it from where you were sitting, but right on the ground there's a rendering with that sort of gives you an idea what the building will look like as proposed.
So are they going to make the one-bedroom apartment or two-bedroom apartment?
It's up to us to decide. Right now, currently, before, it still says 2, but we may discuss and make it just 1 bedrooms. So that's up to us as the board to decide once public commentary closes.
Okay, and the parking cars for the apartment, it will be the front side of the road or which?
It sounded like they were proposing the spots, they only have 2 right there on the lot already. And they said they were going to pave the road. So who knows if that includes or not. We can just go by what is here for the board for the site. Anyone else here to speak on behalf of this issue?
My name is Christine McIntosh. I'm at 327 East Kenilworth. A couple questions. Are they going to be for rent only ever, or are they to be sold? What are the price points for renting? And the price points, if they're to be sold, what are the price points for selling?
We don't know that, but if the petitioner would like to come forward to respond to that, he may.
It's an apartment building. I don't plan on selling them. There won't be condos. The rent is going to be, what market will bear, and that could change over time, but I would assume in a $1,000 range. That's
Okay.
my guess.
Thank you, sir. Any other comments?
My name's Brad Dorr. I'm at 416 East Kenilworth, formerly 306 East Kenilworth. I also had a part in building 312 East Kenilworth, and I will be building at 403 East Kenilworth. So I've invested a lot into the neighborhood. I've been trying to improve a lot of the properties and continue the use of it being a family neighborhood or a single family neighborhood. And the parking is already kind of an issue right now as it sits, having all the parking, all the tenants parking along Delaware Street. And I just don't want to see that being a continuing issue on the street. So thank you for your time.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else wish to say something?
Good evening. John McIntosh, 327 East Kenilworth. I am taking a great risk of my health to be standing in front of you once again, but I had to, with some duty bound as a member of my neighborhood to come up here and speak, but it's not in my best interest. I'm also a disabled American veteran and a proud member of the UAW, and I've been a resident on Kenilworth for 25 years and a taxpayer who votes. The variances and everything that he's asking for is unacceptable. Nothing personal to the architectural firm, but after viewing the building, it looks like a big brick shoe house. Not a lot to it based on the other architecture in the area. It is a single-family home. Mrs. Ahmad lives next door on a 31-foot size lot also. And the impact on her house, she has a quarter driveway, all right? She has just enough room to get a car into her front yard. She can't even get into her backyard and has no garage. That's the lady, the next house next door, all right? So with her family, the only other available place for her to park her vehicles are out on Kenilworth, which is utilized on a regular basis. She has, you know, children that live at the house also, all right? So the parking issue would be immediately impacted on Mrs. Ahmed because her spot in front of her home is the closest available spot for any overflow parking coming from this development. So I want you to take that in consideration. You just spoke to her, and you can see that she does struggle with the English language, and she should not be taken advantage of in this form. The next thing is that Mr. Violante did point out that there are no other residents to the north of this property. Well, a number of years ago, there were 8 houses there that were torn down by Mr. Violante and put in a parking lot, okay? So at one time, there were 8 single-family homes there. Actually, 9 at one time until he finally got them all down, all right? In that process, we tried to save one tree, which is gone, okay? That was destroyed by DTE and the Violante property. So we lost that one issue. The other issue we had on this was that street there was to be paved. Never happened, okay? Now, the next thing is that the last variance for parking on Violante was given 78 parking spot variance based on the size of his building, okay? 78 cars for the parking lot for that market were waived in his favor, okay? Hence, the steady congestion that we have suffered on Kenilworth and the surrounding neighborhood, okay, with excessive parking, especially on the holidays. We have customer parking all the way down my street. Not to mention the fact that his first mode of transportation was to tell all his employees to park out on the side streets and not park in the parking lot because he's going to leave that for the customers, okay, which they followed. And to this day, they still do. So Mr. Violante then buys the next piece of property and builds another big parking space on the next street over, parking lot on the next street over. But he also happens to put on security gates. So the only people that are allowed to park in that parking lot are his employees, which, you know, as a business owner, I could see the sanity to that whole thing. However, his employees still insist on parking closer to the building and park on East Kenilworth and on Delaware, lining that whole street. That whole area where he's expecting to put his tenant parking is already occupied by most of his employees that don't want to park in the parking in his coordinated parking structure. The next thing is that the vehicular traffic from the patrons of the store is excessive, which you can't hold that against a man who's trying to make a dime and having a successful business. I applaud him for that. However, that's a direct impact on our tiny little neighborhood there. The next thing is that not only is that business there supported by many semi-trucks, which originally were no more than 5 a day, which was supposedly spoken to during the planning organization, but it exceeds in as many as 15 trucks a day come in. Now, he takes great pride in the fact that his loading and unloading operation is done actually on his property and not done on Parent any longer, okay, where it used to be. All right, which, you know, obviously he tried to work with the neighborhood and did something there. But it doesn't take away the fact that when those trucks leave, they come in off of Parent, which is a concrete truck surfaced road, drive onto his property, unload, and then exit by way of Kenilworth, which is an asphalt vehicle surfaced road, which in the few years of him now taking over this whole mode in the flow of his traffic stuff, has now reduced Kenilworth into a pothole, jungled, ribbly, rocky, third world country street, okay, with single-family homes across the street from this parking lot. This is all the hardships that this neighborhood have endured. Not to mention that the street, Delaware, is never and very rarely graded from the city. And because of the current situation between, on Delaware, between Parent and the next street up, which is the truck traffic road, can't remember the name of it, that there, half of it's blacktopped, okay, and he's talking about the part of the piece of property that he's deeded to the city out of the goodness of his heart to make a whole road in there. The other half of that road is dirt. Well, that's always been tore up, and you can't. No, traffic doesn't go through there because you don't want to bottom out on your vehicles, okay? Sometimes you have to when you have things like Dream Cruise, Christmas, Thanksgiving, New Year's, Arts Beats and Eats. When traffic or something going on down, an accident or the zoo is filled up for the day on a beautiful sunny spring day, you have to go out these back roads just to get out of your neighborhood, okay? Well, you're driving down Parent, and it's bloody well a catastrophe. Now, those roads there, Parent and the next road above it, which I think is Harrison, are, if you come off the expressway before Main Street, the exit before Main Street heading west off of 696, that is considered a truck route that comes in through the new condos that you guys just approved the variances for there on Knowles, the 76 unit that's going in on Knowles there. That route there through there is all truck traffic. That also supports the recycling center that's over there, okay? So you have all this truck traffic coming in on Harrison, and that on a truck road that's built with a traffic light, okay? Then you have Parent, Parent, which is a truck traffic road, because before those condos, I know I'm taking my time, those condos there are still, before they were put in, that was all industrial park back there. Now it's all condos, but they still have a truck traffic road. Kenilworth is a street road, and it's not handling the truck traffic as well as it can be, not to mention the congestion that this whole operation exists, and it makes it tough for the neighborhood. Yes, we are very concerned, absolutely very concerned about this issue about parking. Okay, I can't hold Mr. Violante against him wanting to improve this place because the existing place is a rat trap and a hole. It's really that bad. And his answer to fix it is put a 60-foot green blue tarp over the top of the roof, so we have to look at that all the time. So, and it's a single-family house that's been converted. Go back to what it should be. It should be a single-family house put there, and that's all it should be. But this density thing on a corner at the mouth of a residential street with $500,000 houses across the street is not the answer for that piece of property, because the houses across the street went from 302, 465, 495, 685. Those are the four houses just on the north side of Kenilworth. They're going to be across the street from that place, okay? So think about their value, okay, when this is all being said. And think about their value when they're looking at the pre-existing house that's already there. Thank you for your time.
Is there anyone else here to speak on this matter?
I just got a quick question. How many square feet is the lot we're talking about? All right, maybe I should go this way. How many square feet is the lot?
4464.
Did you want to state your name?
I'm sorry, I'm Bob Sutherland.
Okay.
I'm just
Okay.
fascinated by all this. 44...
64.
4,464 feet. Wow.
Any other comments? Do you have anything new to add?
Yes.
Do you have, is it?
It'll be quick. I'm going to repeat
my name?
No, we have it from before.
Okay, well, my other comment is, I see the property on Parent in Delaware is up for sale or lease. Is there any chance that could be expanded farther down where he'd have more parking? That was my only comment.
The other property is a mixed use. And this is residential.
Any other comments regarding,
I just want to, can I respond to one of those things?
does anyone have a problem with that? Okay, real quick.
They're talking about paving and me not keeping my word. I signed the paper to pave between, and I have an agreement between Parent and Harrison. That's my only obligation, and now it's up to the city. I don't pave streets of the city streets. So when they do that, I'm obligated. I have no obligation to pave from from Kenilworth to Parent. Just.
Thank you. Any other comments? Seeing none, we'll close the public hearing. Do you wish for us to proceed on this matter? Okay. So bringing it back to the board, is there any discussion and/or motions? My guess is if the use variance doesn't pass, then everything else is not needed to be discussed, so that might tend to lead something, correct, Joseph?
Needs to be an affirmative motion that passes on all of the variance requests, but you're correct that the most imperative one to deal with is the use variance.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a question on that use variance, because if the use variance didn't pass, does it go with the property currently? I mean, because it's already, I'm assuming, grandfathered in to that, correct?
What's there currently is considered legal, non-conforming, so long as they still maintain the rental license and occupy.
But if we decline the use variance here, which one does it supersede what's already there? I guess that's what, meaning, would he not even be able to keep the building that he's currently has? That's why.
It's just based on the proposal.
Okay.
So the current circumstances remain, whether this approval ever came in front of you or not. Or whether this project ever came in front of you or not. Sorry.
All right.
I'm sitting here somewhere between not wanting to see this thing with the blue tarp and maybe that scaled down a little bit. I was kind of hoping that they'd come back next month maybe with a little bit of it scaled down. I think when you go to one bedrooms, it starts to eliminate some of the parking. I mean, I feel a little bit like I've gotten the history of Southern Royal Oak here tonight, as opposed to really focusing on this project. And I was involved in the zoning board when we did Holiday Market, so it's kind of a revisit to it. I'm kind of surprised that the neighbors came out and want this instead of that. I can see maybe that's a little bit too high and maybe could be scaled down a little bit. But if I lived across the street, I'd certainly want to see something more like that than this. So the truth of the matter is Mr. Villiante has the ability to continue to rent this. It's been rented. It'll remain rented. It's an opportunity, I think, for the neighborhood to eliminate that and step it up a little bit. So I like that aspect. I certainly understand the neighbors' view of the density of it. So I think when you go to 8 one-bedrooms, maybe that scales down a little bit, and I would have liked to have seen them come back with that.
I'm not seeing that, I didn't get the feel that you did, that the neighbors are looking at it going, oh, I'd rather have this than a blue tarp.
But that is the option, right?
No, I don't think so,
No?
because other options, it's in a single-family residential. Mr. Violante could do other things with that, put it in
But he
single-family.
doesn't plan to, so.
Well,
That's up to us.
that's not me to make that judgment there. I'm just saying that I don't think we either pick the blue tarp or pick the nice brick building.
Yeah, and I'm conflicted because, as Mr. Violante said, it's almost a buffer area. The other two corners are still residential. There's very nice residential houses on that street, and this, is creeping into the neighborhood by increasing the density. I know it's already a little dense, but it's going to increase it. The proposed building looks wonderful, but it does change the nature of the single-family area. I was looking at the master plan, and they were talking about if there's multifamily there, it should conform to the other residential, single-family residentials that are there and look more like it, which is what the house there now does, but it is in disrepair, needs work. And it could be a single-family building, so I'm not sure where I'm going to go yet. I'd like to hear everybody else's opinion.
This reminds me a little bit of the project on 11 Mile that was approved for Jerry Amber, in the sense that if Mr. Violante did in fact agree to go with 8 one-bedroom units, we would be falling into the square footage where you're getting very close to the micro units. And we did a lot of work in looking at how micro units work and the type of people that rent them and the type of parking requirements that are needed when you're talking about micro units. And there's a lot of cities where micro units have gone in. Specifically, I read some planning minutes from meetings in Seattle and Portland, because I'm a dork and that's what I do with my free time. But they found that the parking requirements are far less than what you would have in most situations. Like if this was going to be, let's say, 8 one-bedroom units, but with a huge living room and 800 or 900 square feet, the parking requirements are very different than when you start getting into that micro range. So I really don't see the parking increasing at all here if it was 8 very small one-bedroom units. Frankly, in looking at micro units, when you have micro units that are located very conveniently to public transportation, obviously this is easily walkable to Main Street, it's actually very common for people like that, particularly millennials, to not even own a car. So I see this appealing to a category of people that I don't see the parking requirements.
Well, I'd like to add that I know a lot of millennials, because that's what my kids are. They all have cars. I don't think Detroit is the big city yet. I think that Detroit, it's still a car. Now, they don't always use their cars. When they're going out to party, they're Ubering, but they have a car. So I think that the thought that we can turn our Detroit suburbs into something where people are going to opt not to have cars, I don't think that's realistic.
Which raises a very good point, because when I read that number, then I also took it a step further to see if those facts were indeed substantiated, and it is, in fact, very true that the amount of people between the ages of 16 and 25 who have a driver's license is as low now as it's been since something like 1950. And that can be very easily substantiated.
Go ahead.
There's obviously a movement across the country that says, for one thing, experts are saying we're going to have another 1,000 residences in Royal Oak over the next 5 to 7 years, and that we're going to be seeing more of this sort of thing because we don't have obviously enough room to put single-family homes in. I try to deal in reality, I think. And my reality on this particular project is I'm getting this or I'm getting something that looks like that. I'm not getting single-family home. Mr. Villiante is too smart of a businessman to do that. He's got 6 people paying him rent in this place that I can't imagine his mortgage is too big on. So, in some ways, I think Mr. Villiante stepping up and saying, this isn't what I want my image to be, I want it more like that, is admirable, because he doesn't have to do it. He's not going to knock this house down and put a single-family home up. So that's just not in the question. So I'm seeing A or B. I like B better.
He could sell it.
He doesn't have to, though.
Yeah.
Why would he do anything?
But we're talking about a use variance, which is.
Well, he's using it for the same thing now, so you can call it whatever you want.
It's still a use variance
I understand.
that we have to deal with.
Yeah.
I'm certainly suggesting this takes some imagination. I mean, this is not a cut and dry black or white issue.
I honestly think the rendering is phenomenal looking.
Yeah.
I have no qualms with that whatsoever. I'm
You like
totally
this one better?
struggling and not on the
Better.
lighter side to go with that use variance. I just don't think I can support that because there are other options. Maybe not with Mr. Volante being the owner, but someone else.
Well,
And it is.
I mean, Mr. Valente's a young man.
Well, I'm just saying that this is a single-family residential area.
But it's not
And
a
it's things
single-family
that fall-
house. So, and it's not going to be a single-family house. So whatever you'd like it to be, it's not going to be. A and B, that's what your choice is.
56 years from now, it may crumble into the ground, and then you can't rebuild this.
How long?
50, 60 years, maybe 100 years, I don't care. Because we've got zoning rules. We got zoning rules for a reason. Now, it's been a mixed use forever. It's grandfathered because the area was supposed to be single-family. If he doesn't get a use variance, he could never tear this down and replace it with a multifamily. When I look at all the other variances here, that's a huge amount. Generally, we're not looking at anything. I mean, somebody comes in with wanting 10, 12 variances, and you're, come on, people come in and want 2, and we have a long discussion. I can't see him getting every one of those, even if we give the use variance. And you're correct. It's going to stay that way for a long time, maybe longer than any of us are around. But it isn't our job to say you can do something different just because it looks better. That isn't our job. The zoning says this is what's supposed to be here. Or, if there's good enough reasons, we let it change. Obviously, a fair amount of neighbors were concerned. Sometimes we don't get that, sometimes we do. These are always difficult. I almost would like, even before I make a decision on a use variance, because I'd like to see something better than what's there. I agree with that, although I'm not willing to just give away a present, so to speak. To see maybe a plan come back that's eliminated some of those variances. Parking one's going to be stuck there. I mean, there's not much you can do with that if you're going to have that many units, but, it could be easier to just say, let's give the use variance if you had something that looked a little bit more like something that might get through this board or not take us the rest of our lives to discuss it, because with that many, it's unbelievable.
When I look at this, and you raised some excellent points, but one of the things that I was sort of grappling with in my head is that even if Mr. Violante came in front of us with a single-family home, given the very narrow width of this lot.
A huge amount of variance, yes.
So essentially, anything that comes in front of us, F and E are backwards, but D, E, F, and G, we're going to have those setback issues no matter what it is. I think we could probably all agree to that fact. Those 4 variances, no matter what is proposed, we're going to be staring at that.
It's a 31-foot lot, which is an impossible lot.
Exactly.
Yes. Okay.
And then one of the reasons I was asking about the 8 one-bedroom units is if he goes with 8 one-bedroom units, are they able to coordinate it in such a way that they actually do meet the 450 square feet, eliminating that variance? And H would disappear entirely anyways, because there wouldn't be any two-bedroom units, and that leaves us parking.
Okay, that becomes a little more thinkable direction. But I think even if we agree to the use variance, he has to come back with a more solid plan, thinking about all of those things, not what's sitting here on this piece of paper tonight. It's got to make other changes. And I'd hate to be the architect, because, like I say, I would hate to be the architect if that was going to be a single-family home on a 31-foot lot. It would still be major problems. So I guess in my mind, at least, then the discussion has to be, do we grant a use variance? Because we still don't have to let them do anything if they don't make all the variances, and the property is going to demand that. They don't just get a free ride if we give a use variance here. we just give them the ability to really work on something that's doable, and they might not ever get to that. It's not a guarantee that they would come in with something that we would look at and say, sure, we can give you those variances because you're not, causing a huge problem with them.
I mean, you remember the single-family home that we did recently about the basement, where there's a basement issue. It's always been two like a duplex. Something like that might be viable, but if the way it stands, I'm not seeing it.
And
No, I think I have nothing more to say.
And I agree, it'd be nice for them to come back and ask if they wanted to adjourn it to next meeting. You're still going to have everyone come before us and talk about the fact of all the traffic and all the parking. So we're going to have that issue no matter what gets presented before us, unless it's a single family. And he's not going to come back for that. I'll agree with that point.
Right.
But I also agree in looking at how we look at the use variances, it only meets a couple of them. It doesn't meet how you grade use variances. Granted, it's been grandfathered in, but in my opinion, this property could be reasonably used as a single family. The appeal would result in unique circumstances particular to this property, not general conditions. Not for the use. The general area is single family. This just happens to be a buffer that's grandfathered in. That's part of its hardship. The use variance requested would not alter the essential character of the area. Essentially, that's what it's already at, so it's not altering the character, just appearance. The alleged hardship has not been created by any person presenting. No, it's already been there, just so happened we're trying to finalize it. And the use would preserve substantial property possessed by other property owners. That one, it seems like it's already a multifamily. So 2 of the 3, I can't agree with, but 3 of them, it's already, because of grandfathered in, I see. So I'm already having a hard problem with granting the use. So I don't know if that helps anyone come to thoughts of whether we make a motion on that portion or if we try and see if we want to table it till next month, even though they said not to.
Well, Mr. Chair, can we ask the petitioners to come up and see what their interest level in meeting some of the things that we've discussed is?
If no one has a problem with that, I have no problem with it. Okay.
We are definitely willing to come back, go back, explore the plan and see how we can minimize some of the items or variances. I just want to make sure, though, what I'm hearing is that there's a concern about the use variance. Is it a waste of our time to go back and revisit these items?
That's sort of what I'm getting at, which is, but granted, if you come back, you would have probably a fuller board, so instead of going for a unanimous decision, it wouldn't be.
I think that's unfair to the petitioner, really.
I agree with you, that's why I kept on asking about it.
Yeah.
But that's sort of your decision too, as to, but I agree with the use thing. If we're not going to agree to it, why even spend the month?
No, I think we need to talk about that, because if that one goes down, the whole thing goes down, period.
I mean, if we
And it
make a
becomes a big
motion to table
discussion.
this until next month, obviously, Mr. Krieger and Mr. Violanti can confer and just decide, you know what, we just don't want to march down that road, and they can just pull it from the agenda next month and what have you, or they can decide they want to pursue it.
Plus, we might have 2 more members here, we don't know.
How many? So you're missing 2 besides Jeff Klatt.
Right, so anyway you slice or dice, you got to get 6 out of 8 anyways, because Jeff's going to recuse next month anyways.
So we would need 6 out of the 8. Okay. Well, we're willing to come back, but again, if for some reason, if the temperature is no about the use, then there's no point wasting our time or Mr. Valentin's money. So.
Well, you've got better odds with 2 more people. That's the way it goes.
My personal feeling is, I think it's been known that I'd like to see you bring something a little scaled down that could look a whole lot nicer than that. I worry a lot about houses like this, especially money-making houses like this. because there's no reason to change it.
Right.
I was kind of shocked Mr. Viliati came in front of us to do something like this. I mean, it's got to be a cash cow. Why would you mess with it?
Right. Well, and it goes back to what I was saying. We looked at doing minor improvements, and then it turned into, well, let's make this more marketable to get better tenants, and then it kept escalating to the point where you pretty much tear it down. And, you know, I think I can speak for him that it will stay as a multifamily in his mind. He does not have to sell it.
$2,000, he puts a roof on it and let the good times roll.
Right. I mean, if he had to, he could re-side it, put a roof on it, and just, that'd give him another 20, 30, 40, 50, you know, whatever it is. So, I mean, but the goal is to make it nice, increase the value. You know, we can look at scaling it back, making it fit into the neighborhood a little bit more. Our approach is more of a row house. There's other examples around town where that's done very well. If you go down 4th Street. And I think that looks richer than trying to, you know, make it look like a home that was converted again. So that was our approach. But we're willing to come back. So, Mr. Murphy, how does that happen? Do we automatically go on the next agenda under old business, or do we have to refile? How does that work?
Well, the board will make a motion in a second to accept postponing it.
Table us, okay.
And if you provide me with some revised drawings or concepts, we'll look at them, see if it necessitates more of a variance and then it becomes a new request, or if the design.
Well, that's not the plan.
Yes.
Yeah, so, all right.
I've been in this scenario before where, yes, unfortunately that happens. So yes, if it's all scaled down and the board is able to grant you less of variance based on these items, then you'll bring back your revised drawings and it'll be placed the first item under old business. And the board can consider your concepts and how it reduces the variance requests that you
What's
have.
the deadline to hit the next available, or what is the next available agenda? Is it next month?
Yes, April 13th, since we held the public hearing, as long as it's not a new request, there won't be another public hearing.
Okay.
So it's something that we can place on the agenda whenever you provide it to
So
me.
if we had something next week, that'd be enough time for you? Okay.
I may send out the packet sooner, but if you get it to me at any point in time, I'll just add it to the packet.
Okay.
Yeah, I was just going to formalize making a motion to table this item until next month.
I second that.
Discussion? None? Motion to vote. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay.
All right, thank you.
very much. Table till next month. For the public, just so your notes, there won't be a new notice sent out, so you'll just have to keep a track of the agenda in case,
Feel
see
free to
when it's on.
contact.
Or feel free to contact.
our office.
Okay. What's your number?
248-246-3285.
32.
Okay. Now we on to case number 17-03-10, an administrative review request. Appeal the requesting that the Zoning Board of Appeals overturn the zoning administrator's determination of the width of an attached accessory structure garage as it relates to section 770-28A8.
Make a correction, it's 2020.
Oh, sorry.
I mean, they have it as 28, but it's 22.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Murphy.
You guys in a hurry, huh? Jump right up here?
Our job is done until next month, but we'll have a bigger crowd for you, so that's how you guys want to go. I had a 262-page petition the last time I fought. Like I said, I put myself at great personal health risk doing this. I don't like doing it. The doctor says I should.
Anyway, Mr. Murphy.
Sure. This is an appeal to our determination in applying the width of an attached accessory building as it relates to the particular section in the zoning ordinance. The zoning ordinance does state that an accessory building, whether it's, in this case, an attached accessory building or an attached garage, can be no wider than 50% of the front facade of the dwelling. So it indicates that at no point may it be wider. It doesn't indicate that it can be no wider only at the front facade. So you'll see a lot of examples of floor plans in the report where the width of the attached garage is indeed, based on the floor plan, is indeed 50% at the very edge of the front facade of the building. But as the floor plan expands into the house, the floor plan for the garage itself becomes wider at that point in time. So again, the ordinance isn't specific in saying that only at the front elevation or front facade of the home can it be no more than 50%. It says at no point, essentially, can the accessory building be wider than 50% of the front facade of the home. So if it's a 40-foot wide facade, and at the very edge of the facade, it's 20 feet wide, that's the 50% requirement. If it goes in and it flares open further to take up more of the floor plan at that point in time, we've applied that the ordinance states that it needs to, the accessory building at any point in its width can be no more than 50% of the front facade of the home. So you'll see some examples, and I can bring them up if you'd like. The petitioner did apply for a building permit, as he's built many homes in the city, and submitted a very similar floor plan to what he's been approved for before by the building office. We've seen a fair number of building floor plans similar to this in more recent times. And I'll bring up one on the screen in front of you. You'll see based on this floor plan that the attached garage is no more than 50% of the front facade of the home at the front facade of the house. But as we enter into the garage and into the house, the floor plan for the garage widens out to be greater than 50% of the front facade of the home. So the building office has been seeing a greater frequency of floor plans of this nature. So they've consulted with our office, and we've determined that, no, in fact, that it should be at no point wider than 50% of the front facade of the house. So they've been turning them down more recently. The petitioner had two homes, similar floor plans that they were proposing to build. We had a conversation. He applied for a variance request to seek a waiver for each home site, and we also discussed the option of applying how we apply the standard. So if the board overturns the standard of how we apply it, it'll apply to any home that he or anyone else designs and builds from this point forward.
Can anybody here, Clyde, Joe, tell me how this whole thing came? I have a house like this, and they tell me I was one of the last houses that got, and I don't, how did this rule get into effect? Anybody know?
We actually tackled that on Plan Commission probably somewhere around 10 years ago. There was a handful of houses that were being newly built. There was one actually over in my neighborhood south of Normandy, west of Woodward, where the garage actually went out past the setting where the door was. So you actually had a garage going out further than most of the house, and the living room area and the entry area was actually behind the front of the garage. Yeah. And we were seeing more and more designs like that. So you had an attached garage, but the attached garage was actually protruding into the front yard. So I would really have to go back and look at some old notes, but that was really the genesis of a lot of how this ordinance was born.
Wouldn't the zoning codes be in effect, though? I mean, if you were so far from that lot line and so far from the front lot line, why would that matter to us?
I think it was real.
I think, can we wait that on discussion to discuss that part of it? Right now, I just want questions for Joseph. Sorry.
Oh, I thought that was.
Well, you were talking amongst yourself. Do you have a question for Joseph? I have.
No,
Sorry.
Just for the sake of clarity, so if, for example, that plan is a little bit tougher to read, but page number 7, it's a simpler plan. So for the sake of clarity, for this one? No, it's a floor plan. It's that one right there. So let's say, for example, we took that staircase. You walk in the front door of that staircase. If we slid that wall with that adjoining staircase to the left, so it aligned with that wall right there, this would be in compliance, correct? So this could comply if they altered the interior of the home.
And in having conversation, when you look at the front facade of a home, you may not be able to tell. I don't know if there's the front facade of this home in here. Yeah. Are you able to reference, based on this facade, the width of the accessory structure, the attached garage? And you can, and that's why we refer to the floor plan. So oftentimes people, in this case, this particular one has a masonry facade or stone facade of some sort. Sometimes there's a window, sometimes maybe there's a wider or two separate garage doors. So it's not a question of the look of a facade as much as it is the width of the floor plan related to the attached garage.
When we were talking about this, like I said, going back 10 or so years ago, I do recall that we were really dealing with just simple percentages in terms of the facade. And now you're talking about how the garage may go inward and then become wider in the interior, so obviously you can't see that from the street. Are there concerns with that your department has that maybe we're not considering?
Well, we were seeing houses that were on very narrow lots where modern standards people wanted a traditional two-car garage, and maybe they had a narrower overhead door. Mm-hmm. But once you went into the attached garage, it was much wider. So again, visually from the front of the home, it may appear as though it's a 1.5 car wide garage, but it was a two-car garage. And you oftentimes saw windowless facades. Someone would have a facade where you could clearly see the outline of what one would look at a facade and say, well, the garage is from this point to this point, when in fact, maybe the front door, and I'm only referring to this particular example, maybe the front door was further over and this was a windowless facade, and behind that windowless facade was the garage.
So I'm still confused.
Yeah.
So are we supposed to be looking at this, or do you look at this as if we're just looking at it front on from the street? It can't appear that the garage is more than 50%?
No, because there are no standards specific to that. Again, that's what most people think of in the traditional sense. But where do when we come back to this one,
Yeah.
where do I go to from? Mm-hmm. Generally speaking, you would say it's from here to here, mm-hmm. right? And then when you look at the floor plan, you say, oh no, it's from here to here.
That's because the ordinance says building, it doesn't say front garage.
It doesn't say anything about one would, because it's a rather unique ordinance provision, one could very easily interpret that to mean facade. That's where we said we're seeing more and more examples where it's flaring out and getting bigger and bigger. It's a bigger element of the floor plan, and the real intent was to not have it be a dominating feature of not only the facade but the overall character of the home.
I hear over and over people tell me we don't like design police in Royal Oak, but this seems a little design policey to me.
I would say that by having regulations specific to a facade, it would be designy, or whatever the term you use.
Policing.
But, yeah, there you go. But by looking at a floor plan, it's more
design policing.
You could view it that way. I would say that to me, it helps me look at it and say it goes from here to here, versus a facade. It's tougher at times. It's tougher to make that determination. And that's where it comes down to design. Well, they have a window there, and I can't tell whether that window goes to a garage or to the inside where there's a little bench where someone comes in and takes their shoes off. That's why I refer to the floor plan.
Any other questions for Mr. Murphy?
Does this only occur, now, I don't think this ever happens in Royal Oak. We don't have lots big enough, but, you get places where they have big enough lots, you end up putting that garage door on the side of the house. And I tend to think, and again, not wanting to be the design police, but if you look at a house with an attached garage and 3/4 of the house is the garage doors, it's a rather unattractive house. I got a feeling that's where this thing came from originally, is if it's less than 50% or less, it doesn't look like a, I don't know, you open an auto repair center on the street. Yeah, a garage, rather than a house. But yeah, it's a neat thing. And depending on how your facade was, it's almost like it's the garage door that's the visual point. Where those lines are on the garage, like you said, depending on what you put on the outside. That particular one, it was, oh yeah, the garage is here to here, because it looked like it was frame versus brick. But
and we've had a few people want to have a 3-car garage, so they did make it enter off the side.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that got them around having a garage that was wider in terms of floor plan and visually in terms of a facade that was wider than 50% of the front facade.
Yeah,
So you could enter it off, like in Bloomfield
it was
Village.
a
I
wide
think
enough
that they're
property,
very similar
side
to
entry
that.
garage.
In the village, they all have garages, but you're not
You don't
supposed
see
to
the
see the
doors.
doors at all. So
Right.
they all look like they're windows and part of the house as you drive around the side. Is that,
Design standard. That's a design standard.
okay.
yeah, and when we can't really do that in any of our lots because
right.
they're,
Too small.
unless you had a double lot.
This is based on a design standard, though, right? That's, because it's referred to in the findings, for the neighborhood preservation and residential land use from the master plan, they don't want it to look like other suburbs with front-facing garages. They want the garages in the back or on the side.
Correct.
So that's why this
Well, it looks like a
is
different suburb.
50%.
No, that was.
Well, I tend to agree with that, but I'm just
Also,
surprised.
the
Yeah,
fact
no,
that
it's
the
a
floor
very
plan is a dominating feature of most of the homes in the city don't have an attached garage.
Right.
So we started
Yeah.
getting homes where we do want to allow for attached garages, it's most appropriate, but do we want that to be the dominating element of the house? Not just the look of the house, but the house itself, the whole structure itself. Anyways, I think.
Any other question, any other questions for Mr. Murphy?
Very confusing.
I just have two quick ones, I'm sorry. First off, since I don't ever recall seeing an issue like this, an administrative review request, simple majority for, okay, that's one. Number two, if, for example, we back up the administration's view on this, if anyone disagrees with it, they can always come before us for variance on that issue, correct?
Correct, and that was the original request, two applications, two separate properties that the petitioner did apply for, and we had a conversation about the different options, seeking variance requests individually, and then this appeal as well, which would be applied universally.
Right, on a case-by-case,
Correct.
as the case warrants for hardship. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I can see, you were talking, you could have this, looks like it's not that big, but you end up putting, I don't know, go beyond that. You make a 5-car garage coming in off a 2-car garage door, and 3/4 of your house is now your garage, but in reality, we also have another rule that limits that. We can't be over 800 square feet.
Right?
So-
You could have something that is
Would
less
that
than
already
800.
exist? Yeah, it was less, but you couldn't really do something crazy with that house and have it 85% garage with a kitchenette and a closet or something, because that other rule would block you from doing that.
And there's nothing in the ordinance that says, well, you got to come in at least 5 feet before the garage flares open, or 6 inches, or 1 foot, or, so that's where we say it applies at the widest point of the attached garage, whether it's a foot in, 10 feet in, what have you.
I'm sorry, Joe, if I missed the answer to this, but what, are we voting just on his particular group of houses? Are we voting to change this rule?
It's an appeal of how we apply that standard, that determination of how we apply the provision. If the board agrees, then it would be it would be enforced by our office and billing office from here on out, and the petitioner or anyone that afterward would be able to come for a variance request for each individual lot that they had a design similar to what you see in front of you.
All right.
They wouldn't need a variance, though, they just need approval, right? If we change this tonight, why would you need a variance anymore?
If you disagreed with how we applied the provision, then we would start applying it in the manner that you elected to, and the petitioner would not need a variance request for the floor plans that they submitted.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, will petitioner come forward. Please state your name and address for the record.
Patrick Ray, Hill and Holmes. My address?
Sure.
1231 La Crosse, Oxford. I gave to Mr. Murphy several sets of plans. I don't know if those, I may have given them to him too late, got to you. that we've built in the past 8 years, 66 of these units that are just like this around Royal Oak, 32 in the past 3 years, and 5 that have closed and gotten a certificate of occupancy in 16 and 2 in 17. Our reading of 770 is the width of an accessory building shall not be greater than 50% of the total width of the principal building's primary facade, as determined by the zoning administrator, as number 8 states. I respect Royal Oak, and I don't want to take away from the vernacular that we have here, and this is the cornerstone of our business, as some of you may know us. I'm not looking to build a 3-car garage or change an ordinance in any way. I understand the 5-foot rule, and we've certainly applied that here and in every plan we've done. And we don't believe that we're in violation of the ordinance as it reads. I understand the building department was issuing the building permits and not consulting with planning. And we have several customers, Mr. Playshek, one of them, David, that purchased 1512 Roseland based on the premise that this is what we've been building and we can. He's well over $600,000 into the home that I think that's not Roseland, is it? No. And all of a sudden, we're changing gears. We're not asking for an overturn of an ordinance or a change of an ordinance. I think that, Mr. Murphy, as you said, we're looking for a little more clarity on the determination by the zoning administrator.
So, what's the time period that you've built these homes?
2008, approximately, was our first one, 8 years ago or so.
So, Joe, has that changed in that period of time? So why could they do it then and they can't do it now?
The building office started receiving floor plans with greater emphasis on the expansion of the floor plan, or the garage floor plan, once it comes into or past the point of the front facade of the home. So it became something they started to bring to our attention and say, is this really the intent of the ordinance? And we've seen these before, but we start to see floor plans that are flaring out larger as we go further in. And should we really be approving these? So a conversation was had in our office, and the community development director took a firm stance to say that, no, we should be applying it in this manner. That was really the intent of it.
And sir, you want us to apply it so it's just the facade, not the floor area?
Well, I'm basically looking for it to be applied the way the zoning ordinance reads. My contention, frankly, is that once you get past the facade, that the ordinance mandate should keep the neighborhoods looking the way they look, 50-50. Once you open that door, you're inside. It's like telling me I can't put my staircase somewhere, or can't put a window somewhere, or I have to change my interior floor plan. I'm complying with the ordinance, and I'm not asking for anything more than that. Nowhere in the ordinance does it read that it has anything to do with floor space, or that my design has to fall into a particular category. It reads directly 50% of the total width of the principal building's primary facade.
Yep.
Is a garage more than 800 feet?
No, sir.
Thank you.
Yeah, not even close.
All right, the one thing, so you interpret the width of an accessory building to be just the width of the front facade, not the entire width of the space?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
When I say accessory building, in this particular instance, we talk about garage, I talk about the entire facade, not just the door. Not just the garage door itself,
Right.
but the entire, end to end.
But you're saying the width of the garage, in your opinion, is just the front facade, not the overall width of the space itself?
I would consider the overall facade width of the garage, not the door, but the entire garage, to be taken into consideration. Not, I mean, that being half of the total structure,
Okay.
as the ordinance reads.
Okay, thank you.
Did you want to say anything, David?
Sure. So you know, I'm a relative novice here in front of zoning boards, but my wife and I did purchase this lot at 1512 Roseland, and we currently rent a house out in Novi. We are transplants into the state. We want to live in Royal Oak and build a house there. And this neighborhood and the Northwood neighborhood is looks like a wonderful place to live and a wonderful place to raise a 6-year-old little girl. So that's how we ended up there. What we're trying to do with this floor plan, quite frankly, is just to give us some additional width on that garage. If you stick with the 20-foot wide garage, which is the maximum that the facade can be, you end up with about 18 and a half foot wide on the interior space, which is pretty tight, to fit 2 cars in there. So that's why, working with Patrick's architect, we decided to bump that east wall 3 foot out. So we added, in actuality, another less than 50 square feet to the overall garage floor space. That 50 square foot is less than 10% of the total floor space space of the garage. So in my opinion, it's not a whole heck of a lot of space. I understand, or at least I understood, the intent of the code to be, attempting to try and maintain kind of the look and character of the neighborhood and make sure that, garages didn't overtake the front facade of any of the homes on the street or in the city. With our design, I think that we've tried to meet that spirit of the code and the intent of the code. Certainly from the curb, or certainly from the street, it would appear that way. So I think that's all I had to add.
Any questions? I just had a quick one. So let me get this straight. Is your house under construction right now, or it's just in permit?
Just in permit.
Okay, thank you.
Two families in permit right now on this issue,
But not under construction?
but not under construction.
Okay.
Is 1512 Roseland your house?
Yeah.
Okay, so we do
And then
have
there's
the
also
plan.
one on Woodside as well. To point to the one on Roseland, the city grants us the ability to, when we hit 50 feet and we have a front-facing garage, now I don't know when this was passed, they give us 5-foot side yard setbacks instead of 10 and 5. When you have a 50-foot front-facing garage, you then go to 5 and 5. And I think the implication there was to allow this particular type of construction. Although I do understand, is it Mr. Esbury?
Yes.
What you said earlier, as a builder, I completely agree with. Those plans over on Normandy, the ones that the door was set 15 feet back and the garage was all the way forward, that's not becoming of what we're looking for here in Royal Oak. And I think that 10 years ago in my homework, some of those units were the reason why that particular issue was put into play, that couldn't happen anymore.
And that's exactly correct, yes.
And that's why we've always adhered and attempted to adhere and work with Doug and Mr. Murphy and that over in planning, is to not push the limits. And I've been that way forever, and I don't feel like we're pushing them here.
Mr. Chair, I'm prepared to make a motion on this.
Well, before we do that, any other questions for the petitioner and then public commentary? Okay. Seeing none, questions, we'll open up public commentary. Anyone here to speak upon this issue? Please come forward. You guys can sit down if you want. Okay, seeing none, we'll close public comment and come back to the board for any motions and discussion.
Yeah, Mr. Chair, I would make a motion that we overturn the zoning administrator's determination on this matter.
I second that.
All right, discussion?
So it'll still be, it's still, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I didn't know that you would actually say.
And the reason I'm comfortable doing this is, we have safeguards in place, like Mr. Mueller mentioned, in terms of not having a standard width two-car garage that then balloons into a 3,500 square foot interior garage with nothing but a kitchenette and a bathroom. So that safeguard is in place. But secondarily, the spirit of what we were trying to accomplish all those years ago really was about the facade of the house. And if somebody wants to build something that conforms to the facade of the house and go in 8 feet and then widen it so they can throw a couple garbage cans and a bike to the side of the cars or whatever, at the end of the day, this builder and any other builder has to create products that are desirable in the marketplace. And if they start coming up with floor plans that just aren't desirable, they're not going to be able to sell their homes. So something going 5 feet wider into the interior to give them a 2.5 car versus a 2-car garage, and you can't see it from the street, I don't see any harm in it.
I'm not here to argue with you. I just want to make sure that I understand how you want to have it applied, and looking at your reference to the front facade. So at what point do we, as staff, then determine it's from, I understand the outside edge of the house, but at what point when it comes in, if there's no defining character, such as a column or anything of that nature? Do you have any clarification? We have some architects here that might be able to provide some better insight.
Oh, like, for example, if that garage didn't jump forward or push forward, if it was in line with the house beyond, then how would you define what
Yeah,
that
that's
point
the
is?
tougher one.
That's a tough
So if it was flush across the front, what would that be? What's that defining?
And I'll just bring up that previous example to help, so that not only does it help us in our application, but more importantly, it helps the builders that want to come in the community, that they have a clear understanding. So let me just bring that up, and we can reference that in conversation.
That was my question too, because I was wondering how they would measure that. And then do we have to say, okay, from like 12 inches on each side of a typical 2-car door, and then it can flare out inside once it gets, so that I understand Joseph's dilemma here as to where we end that measuring tape.
And how much?
Oh, sorry.
Did you want to?
Oh, no, I was just, is there something in the ordinance that dictates where that garage can be? Does it have to be pushed back? Like, for example, in Birmingham, I know you have to step back, but do we have to do that here? Can it be flush with the front facade?
It can be flush, it can be setback, it can project out no more than 7 feet.
Yeah,
So you can have a wide variety.
Yeah.
So if it didn't project out and it all had the exact same brick, you would have a trouble from the outside deciding
Where to stop?
where you say that 50% is.
Yeah,
So I can see the problem.
We need that, and they certainly need that as well.
I've always not liked this, so I'm probably an unfair person to be up here voting. And I am for design police, by the way. I'm a designer, and I like design police. We've done some things in the city that I can't agree with, but the Hilliard homes are not among them. I mean, I look at that, and from a design standpoint, I personally don't really care what you do inside there if you stay within the 800 square foot garage or whatever our rules are. I mean, we have rules for everything. I think if you're going to do anything, maybe bring it back from 7 feet in a little bit, so it doesn't protrude out 7 feet. But I think anywhere half the house, I can't see why we would have a problem with that.
So they don't know where to measure.
They don't know where to measure.
Right. The end of
Because it
the
isn't the
garage.
garage door. It's like from the outside, you may not be able to see a line where.
Why do we have to measure? I mean,
We don't want them to
Because they need
be
direction.
3/4 of the front of a house.
So that's design police.
That's what it's designed for.
That's what
It's
the whole
designed for
rule
design
came
police.
into.
Yes, it
Yeah,
is.
Yeah.
Well,
Literally.
who of us can make that decision?
We don't want the front of the garage looking like it's over half the width of the house. And how do we decide what the front of the garage is?
What do the architects think?
I think that goes back to the master plan, and I did print a copy of at least this portion that Joseph referenced, like objective 1.1. Encourage single-family dwellings that have features and characteristics of homes in older, more traditional neighborhoods. Encourage parking to the side and rear of dwellings. So I think it is trying to limit that or place the garage to the side or detach behind the home. So we don't want that dominating garage in the front yard. So I think it's back to the master plan versus design police.
And my concern also, along with that, is the fact in the ordinance, it doesn't say how much that percentage if it were to be more than 50% once you be on, because the point with the whole width is, and you can agree or disagree with me, but when I have to follow code, it doesn't care whether it's the front face or not. It's the width of the space at the widest point, not at the narrowest point. So by default, in my opinion, the width is the width. It doesn't matter if it's the width of the facade. It doesn't matter if it's the width of the back. It goes by the widest point of the space. So that's, I agree that it'd be nice to allow these conditions, but.
How do you measure?
How do you measure? There's nothing in the zoning ordinance saying you can go 50% at the front facade and then 5 feet, 10 feet, 10% beyond.
No, I follow what you're saying, and I'm just trying to wrap my arms around those, because they're fair arguments.
And we can't add that zoning ordinance in because we don't make the zoning ordinance. We can only give relief from it.
But the zoning ordinance does refer to the facade. So that's why I think it was intended to follow the master plan. They'd rather not have front entrance garages like this, but if they do, they want to limit it to the appearance of 50% of the front. That's the way I...
Are you asking for anything different than that?
No. And this is where I come into play. This is, if we agree with how the administration goes, they're welcome to always come before us to ask for relief on a case-by-case basis of the variance. So if they really want this, they can come back to us and get it. We're just, until the variance actually has a certain percentage or certain defined space beyond that front facade, I cannot in any heart support this motion because there's no defining moment to say, thou shalt only allow it this wide.
Let me restate what it is I think I'm trying to accomplish here. The zoning administrator makes determinations on a very regular basis in terms of what the front of a home can look like and what the percentages are versus of the front of the home versus the garage and so forth. What I'm saying is once those conditions have been met in the zoning administrator's mind, what happens once you go into the interior of the home and they want to widen the garage in the interior of the home away from what can be seen from the facade? I don't see why we're trying to regulate that. Jason pointed out the one good point about, or Jeff, I'm sorry. Jason was up there a minute ago, the other, Krieger-Clack guy, but, about moving the stairway over and so forth. But those are all interior finishes. And I don't see why we as a body would want to weigh in on those. I think it's really just limited to the facade, and they make those determinations
But there
every
is no
day.
mark on the facade.
Yeah,
There's no mark on this
I agree with you,
facade.
but
How does the guy measure it?
How do we measure that?
I know, that's what I'm battling
And I don't
with.
want to go with the interior. I agree. We shouldn't be, what they do inside is fine. But how do we give direction so that everybody knows this is what the facade is?
All right, well, then I got a different question. I guess I'll ask again, why was it okay in 2008, not okay now, and we haven't changed the rules?
Just because they haven't,
We decided to enforce the rules we already had, but we didn't enforce them before, but we're going to do it now.
Right.
We're starting to see more and more creative floor plans that people want as much attached garage, excuse me, as they can possibly.
Is there a different rule for attached garage, for an enclosed garage of footage, or is it still 800?
It's not necessarily the 800 based on the lot size of 10%. So maybe if someone had a 5,000 square foot lot, then a 500 square foot garage might be the maximum.
Okay.
Would it be reasonable to measure, if you're looking at the outside of the facade, the space, the width between the edge of the house and the garage door, and use that on the other side and use that as the measure for 50%? If you're looking at the front of the house and you're measuring from the end of the house, where the house ends, to the garage door, let's say that's 2 feet, could we automatically apply that same measurement to the other side to determine the 50 feet? Does that make sense?
Those to me.
Because the width of the garage door is exactly in reality what we're talking about on the facade. How it looks, it's the width of the door, because beyond that, you don't see anything in a lot of houses. It's a straight wall.
If someone,
I guess
if someone has two individual doors that have a wider space in between them because they want more elbow room when they open up each door.
From the outside edges.
So the most common product that's built is a 2-car wide garage with a double wide door. But you do see
But
three
if it-
cars
yeah, if
with a
it's
single
single-
bay or two just single entry garage, separate garage doors. That softens the look of a facade at times. Or again, in the interior, it allows more floor space when you open up to get out.
But I think that same rule could apply. It's the outside edge of the garage, the most innermost garage door.
It probably won't fit 100% of the cases, but then the ones it doesn't fit can come before us.
Yes, of course. No ordinance is capable of meeting every single scenario. And all examples that we're referring to are very nice products, but they're all fairly standard design products that are built. And you may have an architect that comes up with a very unique product that doesn't have a different roof pitch than the other side of the house, and it may be very unique. We're starting to get more unique homes.
That.
And the other issue I have is we're trying to make this more specific when it's not specific in the code right now.
And it would help us in the interim. We would enjoy taking this back to the Planning Commission to have them consider it further, but applying it in the meantime, most helpful for staff as well as developers.
I guess back to Deborah's point, that's the only way we can really measure that is to take that, if it's the left-hand side, it's 2 feet, apply that same measurement to the right-hand side, past the door, and that's our measurement for that garage.
Yeah.
So you would say half the distance from the edge of the garage door to the exterior edge of the dwelling.
Maybe we can pull one of the floor plans
Twice
up.
the distance.
What about like that page?
Yeah, what if we use this one as a reference?
Of the overall garage doors,
So
because if it's
if we
a
can zoom in on that
single
left-hand corner right there, left-hand side of the garage. So like that number right there is what, 3'3"? So let's say we'd have 3'3", the 16-foot wide garage door, and then that imaginary line, I guess, at the other side of the 3'3" on the right-hand side. We just draw an imaginary line, that becomes your magic number, I guess, to define that width.
on a flat face.
On a flat face garage. If it has a projection, then it's clear, then it's, you
Yeah.
can measure that.
But, and then if, anything that falls through the cracks on that, they got to come before us, which I'm sure there will be one.
Exactly.
Well, we should be for the unique, not the everyday, I think. So, I mean, it seems like more and more that come in front of us must be people moving to Royal Oak want this design.
Well, this is the first time this has come before us, so.
The attached garages became popular when we had those 2 heinous winters with all the snow.
I mean, I have this exact thing and I love it. I mean, I wouldn't want anything else. So, I mean, there certainly are people that want this style home.
Are there any other comments? So before we vote, Joseph, would you like to read your interpretation with what we would be voting on?
I'll have to wordsmith it a little bit, and you can help me. That it's the distance from the edge of the exterior door to the building exterior applied to the opposite side.
Yeah.
Of the overall garage doors.
Somehow you planners and architects all understand each other.
And for the record, I don't like front entrance garages, but that's what our zoning ordinance allows for, so.
But this would be, so this is an interpretation for,
The existing zoning ordinance, that's how it would be applied.
existing in relation to facades that are flat, right? When it's not flat, it's just to where the jut out is for the 50%. Is that what I'm hearing here?
Well, I was actually going to ask Joe if he wanted me to modify my motion out to be a little clearer.
If you so choose, yes, because we don't.
Well, I mean, if you're happy with it as staff,
Can I
then.
ask Joseph a quick question before you do that, just because it's about the measuring? So currently, are you measuring the interior of the garage, or are you measuring what you can see from the exterior, the facade?
We're taking the entire width of the structure from, so I'll point out on the screen here, we'll say from this side all the way to the opposite side.
Okay.
Whatever that number is. And then we're taking the floor plan, we're looking at the floor plan of the attached garage, and we're saying that its widest point measures from here to here. And that distance can be no greater than 50% of that overall distance.
Is that, I don't think, is that what we said? I thought we said the front.
That's the way.
That's what it is now. That's what it is now.
Okay.
So if the way we're being said now, are we shrinking it at all because we're measuring from an outside point to an outside point and not any inside?
It sounds like we're shrinking it, even though I know that's not the intention. You want more the intention to allow for it to grow on the inside.
It allows them to make it grow on the inside.
I don't have nothing to do with the inside.
Make a bigger door on the outside.
Right, but if they're measuring it
They may
from
never
outside,
invite
outside
anybody
to
in to see the
50%,
inside.
total might be shrinking. I guess is what I'm saying. And
It still can't be
Because-
over 50. It could be under. It
Can't
be
we
over.
measure the part we're going to see from the outside?
Yeah, I thought that's what we're doing. I thought we were going to
Yeah, I
measure
thought we
to
were
the
clear on that,
exterior
yeah.
based on Clyde's great point about being the spirit of the ordinance, not the, right now it's defined as the building, like, which means what Joseph brought up, that's the interior with the garage beyond the facade. But Clyde's point is that it's more about the spirit of the overall width from the exterior, which you can visualize,
And
not beyond.
yeah. I do think it makes more sense to do it from the outside and never.
Yeah. Well, we got
Just
rules
all
to
of this
protect
stuff is,
us
in
on
some
building a
cases, you won't be able to
5,000-foot
tell
garage.
what it is.
So let's hear clarification once again of your intention and the application of our measurement. So
Okay,
we're clearly still
I'll
taking.
take a stab at a motion. I'm sure I'm going to make a mockery of it, but I would make the motion that we do overturn the zoning administrator's determination of the width of an attached accessory structure, and we modify it so that on flush-mounted garages, we take the width to the left of the garage door, or to the right, depending which side it's located, apply that same width to the opposite side of the garage door, plus the garage door itself, and those three measurements combined shall not exceed 50% of the facade.
I
For the
guess I
space of the garage. So then you're basically saying what, but how about the
Can't use
ones-
left and right.
Yeah, yeah. To the exterior face.
Yeah.
To the edge of the building,
The edge of the building.
Yeah.
because the left and right doesn't,
Right.
yeah.
To the edge of the building, then
The
the
edge of the
same
garage
shall be
door to the
applied
edge of
on
the
the opposite
building,
side.
that amount on the opposite side of the door, those three measurements added together can't be more than 50% of the width of the building.
Correct.
Makes sense? I mean, he's looking confused. If he knows what we're saying, then it's good.
Because he's got to apply it.
Overwhelming majority of the floor plans we see are, yes, the garage is at the exterior edge of the dwelling. Attached garage is the exterior. There may be an instance where it could
It's in the
get
middle,
right.
yeah. In that case.
It's very rare, but
Then they'll have to come before us.
that's
Because they
quite the
won't, because you won't be
possibility.
able to measure it correctly.
Can I, as we work through this and you're understanding it, do you fit this criteria?
No, not at all. Can I say something?
Real quick,
What's that?
real,
From the garage door, there's 3.5 feet on the right side and 3.5 feet on the left side now.
Yeah.
So if we vote that there's the same number on both sides, you're saying that my interior walls have to match precisely my exterior walls.
We're not saying that at all.
Oh, I should say my furthest interior walls. If you do 3.5 feet on the left side, or make a number up, 5 feet on the left, 5 feet on the right, I'd have to, in this particular situation, I'm using this, I'd have to grow that in order to make the doors of the car bump out, right? But I can't, because I'm limited to only 50% of the floor, of the front of the house, right?
My motion is only referring to the exterior facade.
Not
Once
the
you get inside the garage,
Where you put the wall, doesn't matter.
There would be no more
Your plan would
application of that.
comply.
so if you were, like, right now, this is not in compliance.
Right.
The motion I'm trying to craft would bring that into compliance, because what you do on the interior of the home at that point becomes your business.
So you're only speaking of exterior?
Yeah, I was talking about the facade.
Facade.
Yes, yes.
I'll be right here.
Feet from the jaws of victory.
So in essence, the calculation only applies to the front facade.
correct?
Yes.
I think that would be wise to, and I'll interject that,
Yeah.
that is what you're getting at. and
That is-
was
Maybe
the
it's gonna be nice and
confusion
invite us
the
in, otherwise
clarification.
we'll never know what he
And the
did.
clarification, it applies, the measurement applies to the front facade.
Yeah,
Front facade, yes, sir.
that's all I
is-
care about.
Thank you for clarifying that, sorry. I'll clean up the urine when I leave.
Any other comments on this? The only concern I still have is that we're cleaning it up a little bit, but it really should be something the planning commission should go and redo the zoning on, and case by case stuff comes before us. That's my,
Isn't that what will happen, Joe?
Yeah, we can send it on to them, but in the meantime.
Good. Have them clean it up.
and they've never, sorry, but you guys never looked at any of the stuff we've ever sent out.
We look at what staff brings us.
Okay,
Joe didn't like it, he didn't bring it.
all right. Seeing there being none, all in favor of this motion, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion, interpretation passes.
Change, to overturned. Very good.
Thank you. I do the ZBA up in Lake Orion. Thanks for your service. I know it can be challenging.
Okay. Are there any other new cases? None that I see. Other business, election of officers. Mr. Murphy.
This item was postponed from last month due to the absence of a full board. We find ourselves in that same predicament. There's no need to table it. You may, if anyone would like to, you can call for make a motion for an election to re-elect or to elect a new party as chairperson, and then we'd move on to vice chair. And the vice chair is not here today.
Well, I would make a motion to re-elect the chair and vice chair that we have in place.
Okay.
Is there support?
I'll support.
Okay. Discussion? Okay, seeing none.
Wait.
sorry.
Does anybody else want to do it?
I mean, I've always enjoyed being chairs, but
Seems like all of you are comfortable.
You'll find out in the vote.
Okay, motion to vote, all in or any other discussion? No? Okay, motion to vote, all in favor?
well, actually, I will make some discussion. I'm not going to be supporting. I will support Tim as vice chair, and hopefully we can make this as two different motions. I like you. You're a good guy, but I don't like how the meetings tend to wander and the lack of direction that comes from the chair. And I think for that reason, I will not be supporting you as chair, but it looks like you've got the votes anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Well, if there's anything I could do if I do get it, to make it less wandering, I'll appreciate any help. Any other comments?
I also like you, and I'd be more than comfortable with you if it comes down that way. I think Clyde's one of the best chair people I've seen in Royal Oak. We have him on our committee. I guess as a human resource guy at my company, I'm always trying to, a lot of candidates I see are good. If one is exceptional, I tend to go with them. So it certainly isn't anything against you. He's got 10 years of experience on you, and he happened to fall on our board. So I think I would like to take advantage of his expertise.
Well, that's my point too, is I know Clyde is very experienced, just from being on the other side of the podium sometimes too. I know I've been a friend for planning for many years too, and I think you do an excellent job. So I do think he has experience when it comes to even being a historian, to knowing these facts about these old cases. That's very helpful too, and you've expressed that many times.
Okay. Any other discussion? Seeing none, motion to vote, all in favor, signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed?
No.
Can we, raise hands for ayes? Noes?
Motion fails.
No? Okay, motion fails.
I'll make a motion that Clyde is chairman and Anthony vice chair.
I'll support.
And
Discussion?
I think you'll grow into the chair role. Watching Clyde, I think it's very difficult to learn it from the chair. And like I say, I was very comfortable with you. I didn't have a problem. I think there were a couple situations. I think if Senchina kind of got to run on again, this guy today, I would have shut him up a long time ago. So I think it's just some things that Clyde knows. That's, and I think you'll make a great vice chair. I just have to go with the experience. Anyway, he kind of fell onto our committee, really unusually, but we have him here, so why not take advantage of that?
Okay. Any other discussion? All right. Seeing none, move to vote. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. So be it. Does that occur right now or next week?
Yeah, we'll do it the next.
Okay. Next up is public comment. Anyone here to speak?
Come on, say something. We haven't had public comment in a while.
Seeing none, is there a motion to adjourn the meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Support.
All right. All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Meeting is adjourned.
Get some dinner.
Yeah, really, you're right.